Hello and welcome back to Mike's Place. I'm going to do an introduction of myself so everyone can get to know a little bit about me. My name is Michael Banks. I'm 40 years old. I live in Tampa, Florida in the United States. I'm from Tampa. As far as my video upload schedule and video time length schedule, I don't intend for very many of the videos to be longer than 5 to 10 minutes. That just keeps things in a short time span so that I don't take up too much of anyone's time at once. I plan to upload a video at least once a week, if not once every other week. And I also want to let everyone know that if you see anything in my content that's associated with a group, such as maybe the part in the trailer that has the title of 7 Teachings of the New Age, I'm not part of any New Age movement. I'm not part of any movement. I don't practice any religion. And I am a single father. I stay at home and I keep to myself. Now I'm going to talk about this thing right here. And it's basically just a 3D drawing that's set to spin and just replay the animation. What that is it represents thought, but there's actually 2 thoughts there, and I would describe them as the male and the female spirits. And the ball around them basically represents the smallest amount of space that can exist before you can't divide it anymore. So that's the smallest space, and the only thing that can exist within it is thought and thought beside itself. So now, what are they? I described them as the male and female spirit, but they're also nothing more than light coming into the reality that we live in, and that same light leaving the reality we're in. So basically it's light coming into the physical world that we live in from the spiritual world, and then it returns back to it. And this light binds everything that you could imagine together. It holds everything in place. That is not going to be a topic for this class. This class is just going to focus on the family and relationship stuff. The thought beside itself, this comes from physics, and later on I'll have another set of videos, and it'll basically just teach all of that, what that is, how you start at the beginning of that and come to that conclusion, and how to describe everything. Okay, now we're going to take a look at this power and control wheel. Now it has violence written at the top, really big, and then physical and sexual to the sides. Basically, the power and control struggles not usually, but they can lead to physical and sexual violence. They can lead to other types of violence as well. I am going to start with using intimidation and then go clockwise around the wheel. Also, this is written from a female's perspective, so I'll try to remember to say him and her whenever I come to those spots. I'm not sure why it's written from the female perspective. I am going to assume that it's just because it's usually females that are the victims of violence. But this applies to all relationships, so it's not just partner relationships. This is like friendships, business interactions, everything. So under using intimidation, We have making her afraid by using looks, actions, or gestures, smashing things, destroying property, abusing pets, displaying weapons. Um, yeah, I would say anything that's outside of um, actually committing the violence, physical violence, is usually intimidation, dirty looks, or breaking other people's property. Those are usually some of the first ones that pop up. Some people do like to abuse other people's pets when they get mad at them. Some people like to display weapons. That never really ends well. I remember meeting a couple people that got in trouble for using weapons to get their point across. Next, we have using emotional abuse, putting the person down, making them feel bad about themselves, calling names, making the person think they're crazy, playing mind games, humiliating the person, and making them feel guilty. These are just basically manipulations that you put the blame on the other person, as in you can put them down and make them feel bad about themselves, make them feel inadequate, but once you start calling the person names and making them feel like they're crazy by playing games with them, it goes a little deeper than just basic name calling. At that point, you can really cause the person to have a lot of emotional instability from making them feel like they're literally crazy. So, using isolation, controlling what the person does, who the person sees and talks to, what they read, where they go, limiting the person's outside involvement. I'm going to say that means limiting outside involvement with other people. Using jealousy to justify actions. Now, this is actually a really weird one. Not to say that it's not a good topic. I'm the type of person that I don't really interact with too many people. I have things wrong with me, and I keep to myself. So, but outside of that, they're saying that you can control the person by, I would say, like taking away their phone and then telling them that they can't talk to this person, or they can talk to this person but not that person. The limiting involvement with other people is also kind of, that's kind of a strange one, because what if the person you're trying to limit them from being involved with is a bad influence in some way, like they drink or use drugs and they influence your partner to do those things when your partner goes around them. So that's kind of a tricky one. But I would say limiting all outside involvement, or a majority of it, is usually just not a good thing. It shows that somebody's trying to control you by using power techniques. So the next one's minimizing, denying and blaming, making light of the abuse and not taking their concerns about it seriously. That's like you minimize the situation. Like you, for instance, maybe you were mad, so you pushed the person and then kind of wrestled with them being a little too rough, and you hurt them by like knocking them down. You shouldn't do that in the first place, but then you say to the person, "Oh, it's not that serious. Like I was just joking around. There's no way I hurt you. I was just playing." But really, you were being a little too rough. And so saying the abuse didn't happen, which obviously that's self-explanatory. That didn't happen. It didn't go like that. Or like saying, this is what happened in the argument, but then you change it slightly so that it makes it look like it's all their fault and you're not to blame for it. That's usually a technique that people use to shift the blame from themselves, or to control what other people do. Saying she caused it, shifting responsibility for abusive behavior. That's just shifting the blame from yourself to somebody else. Saying she caused it. That's a strange one, because it's really easy to always blame other people for the things that you go through, especially like fights with your loved ones. And saying that the fights are always one person, or the disagreements are one person's fault always, when you're actually causing the problems on purpose. So you bring up a topic and then use that as a weapon to kind of throw in their face, maybe something from the past or something like that. So then you say it's their fault, but really you're the one just bringing up old stuff that's already been discussed. Using children, if you have children. This one is more towards relationships only, I guess. I guess this could be family related. Making the person feel guilty about the children. I would say maybe if you had custody of the children, then you made them feel guilty about not spending time, and you were using this as a way to kind of get back into their life, if they didn't know that they had an option to not have to deal with that situation at all. Using the children to relay messages. Obviously you're not talking directly to the other person, you're just telling the kid to relay the messages. And not only are you involving children in like your disagreements that they really don't need to be involved with anyway, you're using the children as a form of manipulation to control the other person. I guess that would be more based on what the messages are that you're relaying. And these other ones, let me see. Using visitation to harass her. I don't think that's a normal situation for like everyday life. I think that refers to something more along the lines of the one person being like incarcerated and the other one using the visitations to harass them. Threatening to take away the children. That's probably one of the better examples there. That probably happens often, and you know, when people separate, they usually just go their separate ways, and the children are kind of in the middle, but they can kind of go where they want to because both parents work together and get along. But then you'll have the situations where one person wants to try to control the other's life, their actions, what they do, where they go, and threatening to not allow that person to see the children is usually one of the forms of power and control techniques that they use. Now the next one says using male privilege. Usually male privilege is more prominent, but I mean you do have some female privilege. I'll say like female privilege things that are related to the types of violence that females like to use. It's not necessarily physical violence. It's more along emotional and sexual. But I'm not going to go into too much of that. So we'll just bring up what's here on the chart. treating the person like a servant, that can go either way. One person can just literally always ask the other person to do stuff. They can purposely make messes and then tell them to clean it up, or not help with any cleaning at all, just not do it. So there's a lot of different situations that could happen there. And it can be male or female. I think the perspective here was that usually males are larger, they can throw their weight around a little more. So male privilege is more of a problem in situations that involve violence than female privilege. And that could just be because female privilege is more of an unsaid type of violence. It's not spoken. Making all the big decisions, that can be either way too, but I guess that a lot of times the males will try to make all the decisions because they work, they're stubborn, they don't want to listen to the partner, they feel like they make better decisions, something like that. But I don't know. I always like to have opinions from other people, so kind of makes it more of a group decision thing. Acting like the master of the castle, that's basically a lot like making all the decisions. But I guess if you were acting like you were the master of the castle, you would tell the other person that you can't put your items here. I put my items here. Don't touch that area. You have to use this area only and not this area because this is the area I use. Being the one to define men and women's roles, and that could go either way also. Just trying to say who does what chores, and that one's kind of that's a weird one too, because a lot of times it's men that want to do the outside roles and the women want to do the inside roles, but it's not necessarily like written in stone, but that's just kind of like how it goes. So it's kind of a weird one. The next one's economic abuse. Using economic abuse, preventing her from getting or keeping a job, which the overall idea here is that if you have money and the other person doesn't, then you can control their actions because they have to rely on you for part of their survival or part of their recreation or something like that. And so in this instance, if you could keep them from getting a job, you would prevent them from having income. They would rely on you, therefore you can control them because you have power over them. The next one says making her ask for money. That's a weird one too, because like when you're in a situation where you have to ask the other person in the relationship for money, I mean, it's kind of like, that's just a bad situation to begin with. Giving her an allowance, I'm not sure about that. I think people should have jobs, but I guess in the situation where one person's at home taking care of the children, they do have certain necessities, and if you're the person that makes all the income, and then you don't share that income so that your partner has the ability to participate, maybe recreational activities or something like that, then you kind of have to have an allowance. It's not really an allowance, you just like you take that much out of the income for the other person to use. But that's a bad situation anyway, because really you want both people working. Taking her money, obviously, like that's just straight up taking the other person's money. I don't know why somebody would allow that to happen, but that's economic abuse, definitely. Not letting her know about or have access to family income. Yeah, I guess if you had money put away, like if you're, I think this would be more like if you're married. If you're married and like one person is hiding money from the other person and they don't know about it, um, that would be a way of not allowing them to have access to family income. That would be also lying to the person about the income. Now, under economic abuse, that's a interesting topic because there's a lot of different types of economic abuse situations that you could have in society based on like roles in society. So you could have your government use economic abuse against its people by withholding funds or directing funds for certain um, social programs to something that it doesn't work and the money doesn't get used correctly. That's obviously economic abuse. You could have older people using economic abuse on younger people if they have more money. That could happen inside the family or outside the family. What's another good one? Any time that one person makes more money than the other person in a relationship and they work together, there is a like a large window for economic abuse to happen. Like you don't even mean for it to happen, but it could in a situation where one person has a lot more income than the other person. Um, I guess that would depend on if everybody how the partners agree to the way that the money would work. So some of these situations are a little outside of defining as it's abuse because this person doesn't give this person this, but the situation could be that these two work together and they're agreeing to do this, and then they make up for it by allowing the one person that goes without to switch the role and have income versus the first person working to have income. So it's just, I'm not going to look at it like all situations are like that. I'm just going to point out the ones that are prominently economic abuse. The last one here says using coercion and threats, making and or carrying out threats to do something to hurt her. So I guess going on beyond intimidation, because the first one starts out with intimidation. Threats become intimidation that is directed to end with harm in some way, physical harm or violence or death. So, just making threats is enough to cause someone to have issues, causes emotional issues. Threatening to leave the person, I guess that's more like coercion. You're trying to get them to go along with you and do what you want them to do. You want to control them, so you tell them that you're going to leave, or that you're going to commit suicide, or that you're going to report them to welfare or whatever program that you could report the person to that they possibly could be involved in. Now the threatening to commit suicide and to leave, those usually happen when one person wants to leave a relationship, and that's usually like the partner relationship. So they're partners, they're in a relationship, they're trying to work together, and one person decides that they want out, and those are usually the forms of coercion that they will use, is just to threaten that you'll kill yourself, or you're going to leave, or something like that. Now this one refers to violence that's already happened. It says making her drop charges. Again, like most situations are male on female violence, and this comes from, a lot of this stuff comes from domestic violence teachings, but it also comes out of psychology for relationships. So it all kind of goes together in the end. in the sense of making her drop charges. That could be like a domestic violence situation happened, and you just manipulate her by telling her or him or whatever that you're not going to do it anymore, and you're going to change, you love them, you're going to be with them forever. So it's just, and then they drop the charges. So making them do illegal things. I guess that's definitely coercion. I mean, you could threaten them to do illegal things, and you could coerce them, so that definitely falls under there. That is a good reason to have power and control over someone, is to get them to do illegal things, especially if you're profiting from it. So now this is there's several forms of this, like I said before. This is where I wanted to start because a lot of problems that pop up with relationships or just interacting with other people in general, a lot of the problems are right here on this wheel. And I've gone through and I've tried to think of situations that were like outside of these, and pretty much everything will fit into these, especially when you take away the female perspective from it and you make it as a female and male perspective. So basically everything kind of fits into this wheel problem wise. And problem wise, I mean, like, these can be used as a weapon against you, to try to have power over you and control you, and you can use these as a weapon against others to try and have power over them and control them. But in the end, the ultimate idea here is that power and control struggles end in violence. So that's why we want to know what these are, recognize them, and then make sure we don't do them, and make sure other people aren't doing them against us as well. All right, well, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, and have a good day.